Let me know when we're rolling.
We're rolling.
We've been talking about the book for a while. Let's kind of go back for a little bit. I want to try and understand what playing football in the '60s was like in the AFL. I mean, it was a different game. It seemed like maybe a rougher game, a tougher game. What do you remember?
I don't think the game's changed at all. It's the only change really has been, in my opinion, is that the players have gotten quite a bit bigger, and I'm a little suspect for that reason. I don't know how you could take one segment of the population and have a quantum leap in evolution and not affect the other population. I don't think the rest of the population has gained 100 pounds each. So I'm a little suspect of how they got there. But other than that, as far as being rougher, there were more demands placed on the players' end, but that was only because there was only 33 players on a squad. And so everybody had to play special teams, for instance, and there was very little substitution. But it was the best job I ever had. It was just a great way to make a living. I mean, think about it. You're doing something you do well. You get attention, which we all like. For some of the guys, it was a babe catcher. All the great things. You're making more money than the average person. We didn't make a lot of money then, but it was more money than the average person. It was still good money.
Now look at some of those pictures. Even the one on the cover there. That one's dirty, and it just, I mean, it seems. That's why I said maybe rough or something. You see, it just looks like a throwback game. As they love to say.
Well, all the games then, of course, were played on natural turf, and a lot of the games now are on artificial turf, and you simply do not get dirty. But there's a lot more about the present game that is conducive to players' health. For instance, there's far more attention to medical care. There are far more trainers. There are far more players. And so in some respects, the game was probably rougher in the '60s than it is now.
Talk about what was the mentality of playing in the AFL as opposed to the NFL, especially in those early years.
Well, when the league first started, the NFL did not take it seriously. The NFL did not believe the league would continue to exist. For instance, I was drafted #1 by the Colts, and I was also drafted by the Chargers. And the Colts offered me a $1,000 bonus and $7,500 a year to play. The Chargers had offered me a $5,000 bonus and $12,000 a year. I told the Colts I'd rather play for the Colts. I'd rather play for you. Just give me $2,000 bonus and $10,000 a year. And Carol Rosenblum, the owner, said, "Ron, that'd be as much money as Johnny Unitas is making. That would throw everything off." She says, "That league's going to fold anyway. We'll have you next year." And that was their attitude. And fortunately for the football public and fortunately for the league, we benefit from that attitude because they took that attitude for 4 or 5 years. During that time, the AFL signed approximately 70% of the outstanding college graduating seniors and distributed them among 8 teams, where the NFL was signing about 30%, distributing them among, I think, 12 or 14 teams. So it allowed our leagues to grow in both quality and also in winning the minds of the public. We had some very innovative coaches, like my coach Sid Gilman, like Hank Stram of Kansas City, who believed in airing out the football when the NFL was still grinding it out. There was no more exciting football in history, I think, than our San Diego Chargers in the '60s, with Lance Allworth, Keith Lincoln, Paul Lowe, John Hadle. It was just a sensational, even on defense. Speedy Duncan returning punts, kickoffs, intercepting passes. I mean, we were just absolutely outstanding.
Did this kind of young guard of outstanding high school, or I should say college seniors that are being lured away from the NFL into the AFL, was it I mean, did you guys ever play with a chip on your shoulder? Was it kind of a, hey, you said our league's going to fold, we'll show you?
Well, I must say that we're all sensitive to comments, and we all had our pride, and uh, it wasn't enough that we thought we were as good as anybody. We wanted the public to think that also. And I didn't know how great that depth went in me for that feeling, for that recognition, until the Jets beat the Colts in the third Super Bowl. And for me, that was like one of the highlights of my career because that validated the careers of us who began in the AFL. And then the next year, oh, well, the press didn't let us enjoy that because they called it a fluke. So one of the, I'd say the second greatest highlight of my career, and now we're talking about, I also went into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and then I'm listing these things above that. The second greatest highlight of my career was next year when Kansas City obliterated Minnesota, because that really validated it. Then finally, the entire sporting public in America knew that the AFL played great football.
Kind of the story of the underdog, and that's one everyone loves, huh?
Well, yeah, they root for the underdog, but only ones who are rooting for the underdog in this case were the fans in the AFL cities. The NFL cities, their fans were still arrogantly believed that their teams were vastly superior. It just wasn't so.
And so that's why it felt so good when you could prove it on the field.
Well, it felt good to prove that. Of course, in the meantime, we'd been playing the NFL in exhibition games, and the won-loss record was approximately even. The leagues were comparable.
Let me talk to you now about Chargers, and specifically, I want to talk about. I love some of the stories that I've read in there about Rough Acres, about this training camp that Sid took you guys up to out in the middle of nowhere. What are your recollections of that?
Well, Rough Acres is in Boulevard, California. It's about 80 miles east. It's high desert. Excuse me. It's high desert, and I don't think I know they didn't have a sprinkling system out there. They were depending on rain. Depending on rain in San Diego, the field was not grass. Grass wouldn't grow. Sid had it covered in sawdust. That was our practice field. We stayed in little huts that were supposed to have been for a dude ranch. I could see why that dude ranch failed. I mean, the huts were just big enough to have bunk beds. How would you like to be in a bunk bed with Ernie Ladd on top? Any event, it was the worst. We won the championship that year. Sid always felt it was because we were out there and isolated. That wasn't the reason. We had just great players.
I mean, how difficult was it? I mean, I know that players never like training camp, but I mean, you look at it now; it's a lot different than Rough Acres. I mean, how tough was that? I hear stories about rattlesnakes, and I mean.
Well, the toll, the story grows as time went on, but you're fortunate you can talk to somebody who's been there, and I won't exaggerate. The actual count was 17 killed rattlers. That's what the actual count. There were tarantulas all over, and tarantulas just scare you. They're not deadly. And again, I don't think it added to us. I don't think it added to our. But when you made a comment, you said that players hate training camp. You're wrong. Some like it. I was one of the ones who liked it. One of the reasons I liked it is at a time when most players didn't train in the off season. I was trained in the off season. I was lifting weights, running, doing grass drills. I was an offensive lineman, so you don't touch the football. So no part of the workout is fun. So I was glad to go to training camp to finally have some company. But it's on the balance, it's an enjoyable experience. It's what we do for a living. It's a chance to come together and see the team develop, get a chance to see how the new players fit in. I liked it. A lot of players enjoy it.
Well, then how do you rate specifically the Rough Acres one compared to others you've been to?
Rough Acres, the worst ever. I mean, because everything was lousy about it. Food, the sleeping conditions. There's no air conditioning. The practice field, showering. The shower was outdoors. They might have just created a cattle pen. It was outdoors with some shower heads sticking up there. It was the worst one. You know, in my opinion, a training camp, you should get proper nutrition. You should be able to rest, because being rested allows you to practice hard the next day. And Rough Acres fell short on all of that. But Coach Gilman would, if he were here, he'd disagree with me. He thought that it isolated us and it brought us together.
Were you surprised when Todd called you up and kind of pitched what he was doing and wanted to talk to you about the AFL Chargers? Or what was that like for you?
Well, when Todd called, I thought it was a very good idea. And I'll tell you why. I don't know how these books generally do as a history book. But the 60s Chargers had a very special place in the hearts of the old-time fans. And let me tell you why. The reason is that players didn't make a lot of money. So you had to do one of two things in the off season. You either had to work, it usually meant in the community, or you went to school to get ready for a job when you're finished playing football. I went to school. I went to law school. A lot of players continued on their education. Don Rogers went and got his master's in business. Earl Faison got his master's in education. Most of the players worked in the community. The point is that whatever we were doing, we were meeting a large part of the community. Collectively, I would say that if there were 33,000 people in the stands, I'd say collectively we had probably met 15,000 of them. The fans will tell you, the old-time fans will tell you that the 60s was their favorite era. And these are the same fans who lived through the great times with the Fouts, Kellen, Winslow era. But there was something special. What was special was, one, didn't cost much to go to the games. Two, the Balboa Stadium was very, the field was very close to the stands. Three, they had met most of the players, and they just embraced them with their heart. They loved that. The old-time fans are going to love this book. This is a great piece that Todd put together. It's really outstanding.
How do you like it?
I think it's outstanding. It's an outstanding book. I haven't been able to. I was just shown a copy of it, but the quality, the photographs. Naturally, I read my portion, and and he stayed true to what I recall telling him. I read a few others, and the stories in it are just unique. I mean, they're funny, they're interesting. I mean, everybody has, football player or not, have a few stories that would be interesting to anybody. And as far as football goes, they're all in this book.
You know, I wonder.
Met her, I swear she could change your life. She's got a little wild streak in her heart. She's been saying hallelujah every day. And I like to hear the highway sound. And I don't think I'll ever settle down. I can't change it, it might be a sin. I hope St. Peter's gonna let me in. Got my gypsy soul to bury, man. I don't know how to end it.
That's a good way to end it. Who sings that?
Pat Green sang it one time in concert, and we've been,
Who's singing? Great.
I can't.
Put it on, Ian. What it's all about? It's not real. It's either real or it isn't real.
Yeah, I'll do it. How was you playing? I try to play all the time. Foot of the Cross, man. Katie loves that song.
I play it in